Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for your patience. We'll be getting ready to start in about 5 minutes. So we look forward to discussing with you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Hill, and I am the Vice President and Senior Risk Officer at General Motors Financial, our presenting sponsor today. And I also serve as a board member for Junior Achievement of Southeast Michigan, who's bringing this powerful speaker series to all of you. For those of you who joined yesterday for the entrepreneurship panel, thank you. For those who missed it, you can still go to the JA of Southeast Michigan Facebook page and see the recorded version. I'll be moderating today's discussion with an amazing group of accomplished professionals. We'll explore what does it mean to be financially free, to create a plan, budget your finances, the importance of paying yourself first by saving your hard-earned money, and how to protect that wealth along the way. We'll also explore the importance of giving back to future generations, and why corporations like GM Financial and our other sponsors partner with organizations like Junior Achievement to improve the lives of the communities that we live and work in. Lifting people up and closing the social and economic gaps with specific programming and volunteer opportunities to prepare our youth, no matter what their background, for future success in a global economy. If something you hear today resonates with you, like it in the stream, leave a comment, or if you have a question for one of our panelists, we invite you to type it into the comments so we can get back to your questions in later on in the broadcast. I want to thank the speakers for their time today. We look forward to what we have to learn from them. But first, I want to introduce Jason Lee, President of JA of Southeast Michigan.
All right. Hey, thank you, Matt. Appreciate the introduction and also you emceeing for the day. Also to the presenters, glad that you are able to join us and participate in this event. So, we're really excited. Yesterday was awesome, as Matthew indicated, and looking forward to imparting more knowledge on you, the audience, around financial literacy and wealth management and wealth generation. Listen, these things are critical topics. And as we talk about junior achievement and our efforts to inspire, prepare the next generation to succeed in the global economy, I mean, passing down wealth from one generation to the next, and it is also being fiscally responsible is just key to that. And so as professionals, taking this information and using it is what we hope for here. And this event came about from our work with our Rising Achievers Advisory Board, and we're delighted to have David Jackson here as their president. But before I let him speak, I wanted to just emphasize that we can't do this work without generosity of people like yourselves. So if you are interested in supporting junior achievement, you can do that with Text to Give, which is a platform where you can just type into your cell phone. And the number, and they'll walk you through a couple prompts around giving to the organization, or simply go to our website, www.jamichigan.org. So, David, thank you for your time and for your leadership for this event.
Yes, thank you, Jason. And again, thank you to all the speakers and sponsors who are here with us and able to put this on. I have three notes that I want to talk about, takeaways that I got from yesterday. But before I do so, I'll introduce RAB and what we are. And so essentially RAB, 4 years ago, a group of like-minded individuals got together, and we thought that we should comprise the young professionals in Detroit to kind of bridge the gap, between the young professionals who have the allotted ideas and the still the energy to execute the ideas, and the baby boomer generation who, as somebody mentioned yesterday, one of the speakers, is the wealthiest generation ever. And so we wanted to find a way to kind of bridge that gap and bring both of those groups together to really make difference on a macro level and not just a micro level. And so this Off the Island event is generated and geared towards young professionals to give them an opportunity to get involved in conversations that are, again, geared toward policies and macro level type topics. And so this year has been especially different and unique in that the pandemic in 2020 has probably presented challenges none of us really expected. And so this year has been extremely unique, and we've been able to pivot and tackle some of these more social and political economic topics of today, so to speak. And so really quick, three things that I kind of walked away with from the speakers yesterday, which was business and entrepreneurship. One said that business and entrepreneurship is an I gotcha moment, kind of like an aha gotcha. And her point was that you as an entrepreneur have to go against the grain, and you have to be prepared for the unprepared. And so your preparation has led you to be in a position where you're able to reap the resources. Don't assume that you know your customer needs. Going in as an entrepreneur, you may be all over the place, but always continue to seek feedback. And last but not least, get involved and surround yourself with like-minded individuals. I kind of hinted to that when I first started this dialogue, but those are the three takeaways. And so with that being said, generational wealth building and financial literacy is something that's near and dear to my heart as a CPA. And so I'm looking forward to the speakers.
Yeah, no,
Matt,
thank you very much, David. And thank you to the RAB for continuing this great event. You know, again, as you mentioned, a little bit different this year, but we're excited to talk today about financial literacy and generational wealth. So let's first welcome you to day 2, Junior Achievements Rising Achiever Advisory Board, the Future is Present event. And we're just going to go get right into it. Why don't we have each of our panelists tell us a little bit about yourselves and the companies and organizations that you represent. So Jehan, maybe we can start with you.
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here. My name is Jehan Crump Gibson. I am the co-founder and managing partner at Great Lakes Legal Group. We are a small boutique and consulting firm here in Southeast Michigan. We have offices in Detroit and Southfield. My primary practice areas are probate and estate planning and business and commercial. We also cover family law, criminal, mediation, civil litigation, and a whole wide array of services between our attorneys on staff. Currently, we have 3 attorneys at the office, and Great Lakes is very committed to the community. JA is one of the organizations that we stand behind and that we support in terms of providing knowledge and resources and making sure that we pull the generation behind us ahead. So excited to be here.
Thank you, Jehan. And she didn't mention she also was formerly part of our Rising Achiever board as well, and supporting JA a lot in that capacity as one of the officers on the group. So thank you. Shonda, how about you? Can you introduce yourself? You're on mute.
My apologies.
No
Thank
problem.
you. I'm Shonda Robinson, the Global Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion here at GM Financial. We're based in Fort Worth, Texas, with offices throughout all of North America. And we have been very active with junior achievement in several aspects. So I know our Detroit employees are extremely active with JA, as well as we have a host of team members here that often engage with junior achievement from a financial literacy perspective. And even we have several of our team members that serve on the board here locally. So really excited to be here with you.
Thank you very much. And Jeff, welcome. Thank you very much for being here as well.
Proud to be here. Jeff Fratarcangeli. I'm a wealth manager, been in the business going on 3 decades. Have my own practice in 4 states, essentially, but clients all over the country. I'm sitting in my office in Birmingham, Michigan, as we talk today. I also have an office in South Florida, as well as Manhattan, New York, and then in the last couple of years, I've opened an office in South Bend, Indiana. We work with public and private companies, the CEOs and the executive groups, guiding and counseling them towards their financial goals, protecting them, navigating the landmines relevant to their personal wealth as well as the company wealth. I also have the benefit of working with some A-list celebrities and athletes, which is something I enjoy, helping them. They're in a little bit of a different environment as it relates to the timing of their career, and really have a passion with the give or take 15 other professionals that work for Fratarcangeli Wealth Management, and anything I can do to help the audience with any questions they have as we navigate this discussion. I'm very motivated to do so.
No, thank you very much. And you know, as you can see, we have a great group here and a lot of knowledge in many different areas. So as we speak, I'm looking forward to the engagement of everyone. Again, just to remind everyone, if there are questions for any of the panelists, we will have a Q&A towards the end of the broadcast, and you can just put it in the comments there as you go along. So as we look at financial literacy, maybe Jeff, we can start off with you. What would you recommend would be the starting point for young professionals? What resources or measures can they take to learn and as they're starting out?
I think the basis is having a budget, and so many of us Americans live beyond our means. It's I call it very unfortunate. It's interesting. We go to all these different schools and higher education, and yet they don't teach us that. They still to this day do not teach us that. And I think the first thing that we guide folks, I don't care if you're extremely successful, we want to know what you, as we call it, your survival number. What does it cost for you to run your life personally, family, etc.? And then what is your income potentially, if not current, right? And what's the gap? That's your discretionary difference, right? Your fixed cost versus your top line. And what are you doing with that difference? Hopefully you're above that line relevant to your income, but having a budget. And then ultimately, once you understand your budget, creating a game plan relative to your particular near-term as well as long-term goals. But it starts with a budget. You have to know what you're spending, and it's not fun. I can tell you, I do it every month. P&L for my company, P&L for my personal life. And I'll tell you, it keeps you accountable, just like everything.
Yeah, no, that resonates. I think, one thing that we always hear is not how much money you make, but how and where you're spending that money, right? And so, Shonda, what about from a financial literacy perspective for, when we talk about GM Financial and we talk about prospective customers, right? What is it that customers need to think about when they're looking for a loan or lease for a vehicle, for example?
I think it's similar to what Jeff was talking about in terms of budgeting. GM Financial developed a financial literacy program called Keys by GM Financial in late 2017 for this very reason. And it's really a tool that helps consumers think about budgeting, basis of financial education, really helping them understand how to navigate the car buying process, and just a lot of information that really helps a consumer really take stock in ownership of where they are from a financial perspective. While the program was launched as a live training experience, late last year, we launched an online hub for the program, which allows for us to expand reach and scale of this important information. We also partnered with EverFi, which provides online learning to a number of financial institutions and other companies, and is a trusted provider of curated, accurate, and compliant financial education content and resources. So again, providing just that basic information around basic financial literacy. So many consumers really struggle with where to start, and it can feel overwhelming for just the average consumer, but I think it's important that they know where to start. When Michiganders visit the site, they'll find approximately 30 easy to digest course modules on topics like 401k planning, preparing to buy a home or buy a car, 529 planning, preparing for retirement, and just a host of other things that are part of our lives. So I encourage them to visit gmfinancial.everfi-next.net. And
Yeah,
that's the website they can find that information.
Yeah, and that's and one of the key things too that ties extremely well with the programming that Junior Achievement is doing with students, K through 12, and some of the programs that you're talking to are more geared towards professionals, people who are maybe buying vehicles or and later on in their careers, right? So the two kind of work together. I think it's an amazing opportunity and free resource. So Jeff, you mentioned some of the high net worth individuals, some of the celebrities that you work with. What would you say are the fundamentals of a strong foundation, either working with them or whether you have excess or some of those individuals who maybe aren't the high net worth, maybe they're lacking the funds. When it comes to financial literacy, like how do you deal with the two?
So, I think it's a couple ways I can go with that. Making sure I understand. Are you asking what are some of the things that you should be doing to assure that you're not putting yourself into a position where your probability of success is not as high as it can be? Is that sort of what you're
Yeah,
asking.
no, exactly. Like those foundation blocks of of a strong financial plan, no matter where you are in the wealth.
Yeah, you first of all, you can't overextend yourself. Okay, what does that mean? And that goes back to the budget. I mean, I guide each situation slightly unique, but I think the one premise that has been consistent is you need to have an emergency fund for those unknowns, right? And a pandemic is one, right? Have you put yourself in a position that you can ride out the unforeseen? And we've had multiple. We had the financial collapse in 2008 and 9. We had the shutdown of 2020, and we've had several things in between. If you don't have the wherewithal and the capability of riding out the storm, everything you've created could potentially essentially be eliminated. So whether it's 6 months or 2 years, you need to have an emergency fund for all the things that you're going to need in the coming 2 years, if not your fixed costs set aside for that unforeseen event that won't allow you to continue to bring in the income. So having enough cushion, as think about it, as the 08 and 09, we're not done here yet with this pandemic, so let's not foreshadow where we end up, quite frankly. But as it relates to 08 and 09, if you didn't have the ability to ride out the expenses that come along with investments, tangible or other, or you're going to end up having to sell at the bottom, and you cannot recover from that. Okay, it's irrecoverable. So the fact is make sure that you give yourself enough cushion. And I always say 2 years, right? But it depends on every situation to a degree. But give yourself that ability to overcome that unforeseen. I'm telling you right now, it's coming again. When we get through this one, you're either in a storm, you're going into a storm, or you're just coming out of a storm, and that's life. So prepare for the worst and then plan for the best.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's very important, as you mentioned. So, Shonda, I want to switch gears a little bit. Given kind of where you the space that GM Financial plays, but you specifically, with your role there, what would you say is the corporate's inclusion or involvement in the financial literacy? Why is that important?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's important when we think about diversity and inclusion and we think about those underrepresented groups, so women, people of color across the globe, they typically tend to be the most, the group that lacks resources the most. So I think it's important that as an organization, and I go back to an article that we recently published, our president of North American operation, basically what our responsibility is with educating consumers and educating the public on this. So it's really expanding access to that financial education and really making it available so that those specific demographics have the ability to plan, to learn about budgeting, to learn about information they need to buy a house or what it takes to buy a car, credit scoring, all of that. I think it's incumbent on us as an organization to provide that information and make it readily available for that particular demographic. That's where the inclusion piece comes in my opinion.
Perfect. And Jehan, you're a business owner too, and you mentioned you're involved in the community, you're involved with JA. Why is it important for you to be in representing your company, to be involved in that?
That's a great question, Matt, and kind of piggybacking off of what Shonda just said. I think we all have a duty. It's incumbent upon us to provide resources and knowledge. The reason why there is such a gap is because there's a lack of knowledge and resources. So anytime that we can lend ourselves to be a resource, whether it's through mentorship, through JA or any other organizations, when we're giving youth exposure, and giving them opportunities to see what they can be and then also be responsible. One of the things that I love about JA's programming, the first time I went to Finance Park, I was worse than the kids. I'm like, wait, let me see this. And what are you doing with your budget? I'm like all in. I might as well, and I'm short like them too. So it was a great thing. But, teaching these kids at an early age, okay, because you get from JA, here's what I make per year. I got a wife or a husband. I've got 3 kids. I can't go out and get a BMW, or I could, but like Jeff said, living beyond your means. So I just think it's important to always stay involved. and bridge that gap. So that's why I personally have a charge in giving back, and then so do the other
Yeah,
folks in
thank
my
you.
firm.
Very well said. I just, and I think you can see going across the bottom here, I just want to remind everyone, one of the things Jehan was talking about, Finance Park, that is a program that JA has in order for junior achievement to be able to give these programs. Donations are really important. So I just want to remind everyone, if you want to donate, you can text present to 50155. And make a donation to help the students get the education that Jehan was just explaining. So Jehan, I'll stay with you. You're an attorney. You're an entrepreneur. Can you give some insight into the transfer of wealth? And one, maybe I'll preface that by saying, one of the things that I know about you, and I actually reach out to Jehan recently about protecting my wealth if something happens to me or my wife, and how to protect my kids, and creating a will and those types of things. And it was a very helpful conversation and start of the process with you and your firm. But I wanted to hear from you a little bit, and what information you can give to everyone around that aspect about wealth generation.
Sure. I guess I first, and when we talk about this notion of passing wealth, I kind of like to take a step back, because a lot of folks are intimidated by the estate planning process because they think they hear the word wealth. So this means I have to be one of Jeff's like high net worth individuals, and if I'm not, I don't need an estate plan, which can't be further from the truth. Everyone needs one. Period. Now, what it looks like will vary from person to person, depending on your assets or wishes, whether you have kids, what's going on with you individually. We always say everybody's estate plan is like their fingerprint. It's going to look different for everyone, and it's not one size fits all. So the first thing I want to do is kind of bust that myth. It's not just for wealthy folks, it's for everyone. And one of the things that we've seen with obviously COVID is that you can't plan for everything. COVID has very unfortunately been like a walking commercial for us to demonstrate. We try to ground in people's heads before, hey, look, I understand that you may be 30, you may have not amassed a lot of wealth yet, but, get some basic documents in place so that if you become ill or if you pass away unexpectedly, your assets can be transferred to whoever. If you have kids yet, then great. If not, there may be other relatives that you want to take care of. But if you want to protect your privacy, make sure that there's less stress on your family members and your loved ones, avoid tax issues. If you are in that higher bracket, you're going to want an estate plan. One of the things that I always say is that people are so focused on, okay, what happens when I die? But things can happen where people will have to make decisions for you, and you'll have to direct what's going to happen with your assets while you're still here. And that's part of an estate plan. So that's the thing that we constantly miss. Everybody thinks, my dad calls me the Grim Reaper attorney. It's one of his jokes. He's like, nobody wants to see you coming. I'm like, that's great. So, but it's not just for death. It's also for illness. So one of the things that we were coming up against in COVID, and I can tell you, we had clients with loved ones from late 20s to 70s. Some, unfortunately, that passed away, but others that were, on a ventilator, and then they had to go to rehab for a while, and then they were stuck. They had no plan in place. So, I had one client who couldn't get access to her mom's retirement accounts or checking accounts or anything like that. Mom didn't have any powers of attorney in place, and she had assets to pay for her care. But what did we have to do? We had to go to probate court to get conservatorship. It's a public proceeding. It's ugly. I tell people all the time, probate court is guerrilla warfare. You want to stay away from it at all costs. You're already going through an emotional process with, the illness or loss of a loved one. The last thing you need is this added measure. So there's certain things that you can put in place to avoid that, right? So, get a plan done. Matt just shared that we talked recently. This is a living, breathing set of documents that is always going to change according to your life circumstance. We also constantly work with other professionals because the planning process doesn't just include your attorney. It includes Jeff too. It includes your CPA. It's a team of folks that are working together to make sure that your wishes are honored and your assets are protected. So if I could leave anything with the audience today, it would just say, get started with something simple, something that communicates what you would want to happen and who you would want to handle your decisions. If you become unable to, it could be a car accident and you're going to be okay, but you're in rehab. Who's going to pay your bills? Who's going to pull down, from your assets and be able to take care, of your healthcare expenses or whatever the case may be. And then God forbid something happened to you if you pass away. Folks with minor children or relatives that have special needs that get government benefits, you don't want all that money going into their hands at one time. So we need to have a plan in place to make sure that they're cared for when you're gone as if you were still here. So I know I babbled there a little bit, but
No, it's extremely important, and it's I speak for myself. It's something that we keep putting off and putting off until I finally reached out to you, Jehan, and maybe Jeff, if I can ask you the same thing. When you're dealing with your clients and talking to them about this, and there, especially with younger professionals, there's a reluctance to think about this because they have time, right? What do you see, or what do you tell your clients?
Well, first of all, to piggyback what Jehan said, it's so important. I mean, people think it's only for the wealthy. It's not true. You become incapacitated, or your family has to be left with going to probate and trying to figure out what you had, where it's at, and so forth. It's a no-brainer. You have to do it, and no one wants to talk about that. That's the worst topic, right? And it's mandatory, and we make sure every one of our clients have done it. Now, granted, we only take on a certain level of client relevant to net worth, so it's even more imperative. But I want to make very clear, it's not for just the wealthy, and that's a very broad term. It's for everybody. You need to have it without question. Before I got married and had 3 kids and grew my wealth to the level it has, I had one because I watched what happened when you didn't have it. It's not where you want to be. It's absolutely mandatory. I can tell you this: I can invest your money. Someone else could invest your money. You could have phenomenal success. But if you don't do the basics, it could be extremely costly and very, very tough on the folks you leave behind, or the ones that have to step in and protect you when you can't. So absolutely, that's one. Secondly, what I'll say to that, continuous to what I see some of the landmines out there, I have the benefit of dealing with new wealth, and I have the benefit of dealing with generational wealth. And what I will tell you is the generational wealth has already figured it out, because they already hit their hammer to the thumb. Okay, they already saw it happen. Sometimes as we get wealth for the first time, we just, it's like a little kid in a candy store. First of all, the number one thing is you are not special in the sense of you're not getting some great opportunity that no one else is getting. It doesn't exist. Okay, if it sounds too good to be true, 99% of the time it is, and I think 100%, quite frankly. I've been doing this 28 years. I've yet to see this great opportunity no one else is getting, that some people still think, and it doesn't matter what age you are, that you're special and you're going to get an idea that no one else is going to get. Stick to the basics, okay? And make sure that there's oversight. Not only you monitoring your money, make sure that there's an institution behind whoever it is that you're working with your wealth, that they're being monitored. Okay, I'm an independent practitioner, but I'm attached to one of the largest financial institutions in the world, because they have the liability not only to the investments that we're attached to, but to me. We've got 15 people I've got to monitor. So there's so many layers of folks monitoring. And then there's as well recourse. Good luck if you're investing with Madoff, getting that money back. But if Madoff made it through the platform that I'm attached to, you get your money back. So just don't think there's no free lunch. There's no magic pill. There's always give and take. And it's the hardest lesson to learn. The generational wealth already figured it out. I'm here to guide and counsel you that have not had that hitting the hammer to the thumb, teach you the easy way versus the hard way. I can go in for hours on that topic, but I think between what Jehan said and a little taste from me, you stick to those 2 basic premises, you'll be fine.
Shonda, maybe I'll ask you something similar. What do you wish maybe that would have known when you were younger, first starting out, in regards to that same topic?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the information that I'm learning now, or digesting now, I wish I had started earlier. So started saving earlier, started investing earlier, started earlier with my 401k, which, for all intents and purposes, it's something that you're doing to benefit yourself. I can't say enough that it may be overwhelming or feel overwhelming to start, but you just want to start. So even if it's small, even if you just do 1% or 2%, you will be so grateful that you did 10 years from now. And I think it's important that you just start somewhere. So many people think, oh, I can't afford to save. But when you get into the habit of doing it, it becomes easier.
Mhm.
And I look at savings as paying yourself first. So before you spend any money out, give back to yourself, and make yourself a priority above everything else. So I think it's the important part is just to start earlier, because years go by really fast and you look up and you think, oh my gosh, I wish I had, what you want to avoid is the I wish I had.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the what do they say? The fastest way to double your money is to fold it up and put it right back in your pocket, right? So,
Right.
Jeff, in working with your customers and clients, what would you say are the top mistakes that you've seen over the years that maybe our listeners can try to avoid?
To piggyback from Shonda, the first step towards long-term investing is to contribute to your company sponsored or your personal, if you're self-employed, qualified plan. And there's many terms around that. If you're a teacher or work at a hospital, it's called a 403B or a tax sheltered annuity. If you work for a public or private company for profit, it's a 401k. If you're self-employed, it could be called a SEP or an IRA or something comparable. The benefits that you get from the tax to going in pre-tax for many of us is anywhere from 20 to 40% KISS. And for those out there that hear from other people, don't go there, do this first. It's absolutely incorrect. If you're investing for the long term, which is the financial freedom aspect, there's nothing that anyone's going to tell you from my seat that's more effective and powerful than going into something pre-tax and growing tax deferred. Okay. So that's the first step, right? And if you're investing for the shorter term, then maybe there's other alternatives that make more sense. For example, educational planning, the 529 plan I heard mentioned for our young ones, that we want to give the opportunity that we're kind of prepaying for it in a way with some special tax benefits. Mm-hmm. So, know that the steps that you need to take first, second, and third. I think getting back to what I said initially, and there's really no education out there in the grade schools or high schools, and I don't know that I learned it in college. And budgeting, and then what do you do when you have discretionary income relative to your goals? First step is to know what your fixed costs in life are, so that you don't go out and make that knee-jerk decision to buy that BMW or whatever it is that's really not, it doesn't make any sense. It's a depreciating asset, okay? So know what your fixed costs are relative to your income, and what is that gap? That gap is that discretionary amount that we can discretionary guide that money into a place that's better suited relative to our near-term as well as long-term goals. And it starts with a budget. And then relative to your objectives, some of us have things that we need to take care of today first, like debt. But most likely for a long-term objective of being financially free, those qualified plans that I mentioned earlier are 99% of the time going to be the first step towards that financial freedom. And, it's interesting. I started in the business back in the early 90s, and I was doing an internship in my undergrad, and I did an internship at Merrill Lynch, actually, back, I want to say in 93 and 94. And I started learning about this new 401k, believe it or not, that was fairly new back then. And I went home and I asked my dad, who was an engineer at Ford Motor Company. My mom has stayed at home with us kids. And I said, hey, Dad, are you taking advantage of the 401k? Because mind you, prior to 401k, there was the pension plan that he didn't have any really control over. Well, they transitioned to our investments via these company sponsored plan. And my dad gave me a blank stare. He didn't know what I was talking about. And back then that was more common, but it's still to this day. So it was a passion of my own, and as well as this practice 28 years later to get in front of as many people. And that's why I took on this call today to be a part of this, and that I just want people to realize that this exists. They need to be cognizant of it. They need to be knowledgeable of it. And it starts with a budget. So I don't know if that helps, but that's really how I got into the business.
No, it's very helpful, Jeff. And I think some of the questions that are coming in, one of them is specific to this. How much of your income should you put towards investments in either stocks or these tax deferred plans like you're mentioning?
Well, there's some laws around how much we can contribute to the different plans. I'm going to use the more common, which is the 401k. those of us that are under age 50 have the ability to defer under current tax law $19,500. And those of us that are over 50 have the ability to do something called a catch-up, which means we can contribute up to $26,500. So of course we want to max it out as much as possible, right? But I think it goes even deeper than that. This is the rule I live by. Okay, you're going to pay a portion to Uncle Sam, your partner. Okay, and there's no way around that without going to jail, right? The next thing is to save 20% of your income. Okay, and I also believe wholeheartedly, and my family does it, and as well as my practice, we give back a minimum of 10%. So we donate to different organizations that are not as fortunate as myself and my family. So I think, you're going to pay taxes, no way around that. I promise. You want to save at least 20%, and then you want to gift, in my opinion, 10% of your top line. And I promise you, it's the weirdest thing. You give and you give back, it is tenfold what you get in return, and not just in joy, but in dollars. But I think they're both kind of in line.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it definitely resonates here, and I can see some of the comments coming in. So I think it's resonating across the group, Jeff. Thank you. Jehan, you're an entrepreneur, business owner. Thinking through some of the things we're talking about, personal financing and planning your own individual future. How does that change for a business owner? I know some of the folks in the crowd are also entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. What do they have to think about, or what are some of the things that maybe you thought you wish you had known when you were starting out, now that you look back?
Oh God, how much time do we have? I would say have a plan. And I think a lot of times folks that are excited to start a new venture may come in it a little bit short-sighted. I mean, and this is not to deter anyone from chasing their dreams, but have that conversation. And I think it depends on where you're coming from. So have you had like a traditional, daytime job, and then you kind of started something on the side, and then you're growing it? And are you trying to transfer or shift around some assets to invest in this business? Or are you trying to bring investors in, which is another can of worms from a business perspective, and giving up the piece of your pie? So financially, there are a lot of things that go into the equation. And I think obviously now with COVID, it just adds extra spice on top of it, right? Because, maybe this isn't the time to take the complete leap and dump out everything that you have into a business, or maybe it is. I just think that, part of the education is understanding what it's going to take to run your business. So it sounds corny, but when you're getting the business plan together, one of the biggest pieces of that are the financial projections. What is it going to take to, for your good or your service that you're providing? What is it going to take to do that, short term and long term? Do you really have what it takes? I have business owners who have started, and this is long, before COVID hit, and they got in over their head. They started leasing brick and mortar locations. They signed personal guarantees. That's a huge thing. If you're going to get a brick and mortar location and you're a new business and you don't have, you haven't been around, you don't have street cred is what I call it in terms of the business. Landlords and other folks are going to have you sign personal guarantees. I have had to represent plenty of entrepreneurs that have signed personal guarantees for, lease spaces for 5 and 10-year leases. And these folks were collectible. They had good day jobs, so to speak, before they left. They didn't think they were collectible because it's not like they saw the money in the bank, but they were collectible. You have folks that have signed on to lines of credit with partners, and partners have filed bankruptcy. And what ended up happening? The bank caught that line of credit and you're on the hook. So there are a lot of things, especially if you're going in with a partner. This is like a marriage. It's serious. You got to vet people, and see what they've got going on. So I think educating yourself, going in with an actual plan, and then tying it into your estate plan. So I'm doing another shameless plug for estate plan. I think it's common for small business owners to forget that component. Most folks that own a small business, a lot of their wealth is tied up in the business once they grow it. That's like their biggest asset next to, maybe their real estate, maybe their home, and they're not looking out for it. So do you have a buy-sell agreement? What happens upon your death? Is your business going to get caught up in probate court? I had a client who passed away who owned multiple patents. had interest in business, and we were stuck a year and a half probating that stuff. That was about $6 million that could have been handled by his wife outside of probate had he had the plan, and he didn't. So that's one of the other things that you're thinking about as a small business owner, is getting a basic plan in place and your rubric, your playbook. So what happens if you get sick? Not only who will handle your affairs, does somebody know what to do when they walk in your door in the morning, or will your business completely shut down if you can't show up and work? So those are things that some of which I knew, some came by lessons, hard knock life lessons. But I just tell entrepreneurs, take some careful thought. You can still live your dreams, but you have to do it responsibly.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're saying that the plan, the budget, whether you're an individual or a business, the fundamentals are the same, right?
They're the same across the board, personally and for business. And one of the things, this goes to both Shonda and Jeff's points. When I set my budget, I set the money to save. Like, my savings is a bill for me. It's not like optional. It's not something where, by the time I got this left over, let me throw this $50. Like, it's literally a budget item. So you have to start looking at those things and think in terms of longer term, not short term.
Perfect. And Jeff, I don't know if you wanted to add to that at all.
I love it. Good stuff. I thought about this after I was done with my last question and answer, is that, so 30% probably roughly goes to taxes, 20% goes to savings, 10% goes to giving, which leaves you with what, right? 40% to live off of. That's the way it should be. It's part of your savings. As Jehan said, that's part of the deal. You have to plan. Otherwise, you got the world by the tail only for so long, and then eventually it's got you by the tail.
Yep. No, very true. Very true. Shonda, I want to switch gears a little bit outside the topic at hand, and take advantage of your expertise in this area. What is your top recommendation to the young professionals listening today? How it relates to their personal commitment to diversity and inclusion? Whether it's with the organization they work for, or maybe an organization that they lead as an entrepreneur.
That's a good question. I think for diversity and inclusion, what I tell people is I challenge them to get out of their comfort zone. Typically, what we do, we're so accustomed to gravitating to what's familiar to us. And we all know that growth happens typically when you are uncomfortable and you're outside of your comfort zone. I say growth happens outside of the comfort zone. So I just encourage whether you're a business owner of influence, surround yourself with people that are different from you. Get with people that, in a different department than you, different industry. If you're a business owner, get with people that have a different business and gain a different perspective. I promise you, you will learn something about yourself, about your business, about your career that you didn't know beforehand. So it's important that you welcome those diverse ideas and be intentional about surrounding yourself with that diversity. That's where the growth comes. I mean, statistics have shown that companies that truly embrace diversity outperform by far, profits, revenues, those companies that don't. So it's really important that you start to seek out ideas that are different from you, because it really allows you to grow as an individual.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I know GM Financial, General Motors are definitely dedicated to that mission, as well as some of our other sponsors. So thank you for that. So maybe I can go around the group and ask you, maybe give us a podcast or a book or something that you can steer our listeners to that kind of resonates with you, or that you listen to or have read recently that you think may be able to help them as they think about maybe financial literacy or career or anything. So I guess I'll start with you, Jeff.
You stumped me a little bit on the book part. I will say this. realize what you're good at and surround yourself with other folks that are experts in their space. The folks that you have on the panel today is an example, right? You need someone on your team like Jehan, right? That's, you need an estate planner you can go to. I have several that I have seen their work, and you want to get around that. As it relates to tax planning, you need to be with someone that's going to be an expert in that role. That doesn't mean you don't monitor and know what you're doing. It just means you surround yourself with people that are experts in their own lane. I don't change my own oil, right? So get folks that's their job. It'll save you a lot, of mistakes, if you will. And the other thing I'll tell you is if you're complacent, or as I like to call it, overdrive, you're going in reverse. And it's just so darn competitive out there in the world today. And if you, try coasting for too long, unfortunately, you're losing ground. You just want to continually improve yourself. You want to ultimately make sure you're getting closer to your goals. You want to reassess your goals. My team here, we do 1-year goals every January and December. What do we want to achieve? Where do we want to be in 1 year from today? And we all keep each other accountable, and we have 5-year visions. And I'm going to tell you something. You write it down. I have it posted right behind me. You can't see it. But I've been doing it now for, over a decade. And not one of the things that I've listed that I want to achieve have I not made. Maybe not in the time frame that I set for myself, but every single one of them. It's interesting. And you put it in a place where you can see it. Our brains are so powerful. You write it down, you share it with somebody, and you have it somewhere you can see it. I promise you it's going to happen. So write your own.
No, I think that ties into the planning that we're talking about, financial literacy as well, right? If you're not planning for it, writing it down, measuring it, it's not going to happen. You're absolutely correct. Shonda, how about you?
I have a couple of things. So I'm reading a book now. So diversity and inclusion is really encompassing my world right now. And I got a recommendation on a book last week and just bought it and starting to read. It's a book by Martin Luther King Jr. Where do we go from here, from chaos to community? So really thinking about how we as individuals can contribute to making just our world a better place. I know that oftentimes we think it's it's overwhelming. There's so much to do. What impact could I make? And I promise you that we all can make an impact where we are. If we just look around and think about the small differences we can make with the people that we interact with the organizations that we're a part of, with the company that we work for, or the organization that we're leading, or boards that we sit on. There is a way to make a difference, to make our worlds a better place. And the second thing, when Jeff just mentioned, goal setting, for me, I create a vision board every year. And it's something that I've started doing with my daughters. I have a 25-year-old and a 15-year-old, and we sit down and we think about what can we do to plan for what do we want to do next. My 25-year-old just graduated college, and she's starting her career and really starting to think about planning and saving money and how do you invest. And, we're having those conversations on the regular, but it's been so refreshing and fulfilling to see even some of their visions come to pass. And I think it's so important that you write it down, and it's something that you look at every day. And I have this, planning for myself like twice a year, where I sit back and kind of review my bills and think about, do I need to make any changes? I'm really proud to say I was with a mobile company for 27 years and actually just switched. And it's little things like that because they could save me some money. So it's things like that that you want to review and analyze every now and then and think about, could it be potential savings, which allowed me to invest more money, pay myself first, in my savings, to put more money into savings. So little things like that. You want to just maybe have a meeting with yourself, maybe twice a year, to check in and say, is everything where it needs to be? And I think it just makes a difference for me.
Perfect. No, thank you. Thank you. And Jehan.
I'm going to kind of take from what Shonda and Jeff said. I will admit it's been a while. I mean, I used to, back in the day books, I have the whole, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the smartest guy in the room, who moved my cheese. Recently, I'm going to be honest, I don't get a lot of time to do leisure reading because I have to read for a living. So by the time I get done reading, I'm like catatonic. So I don't do as much reading as I should. And I'm not a huge podcast person, not because I dislike them, but once again, I also have to listen to people. for a living. So sometimes I get a little gorged out with that. But what I do is try to involve myself. What Jeff said about your network and surrounding yourself with folks that know what to do. I mean, I have a financial advisor. There are things that I don't know. I see that intimidating screen in Jeff's background right now, and it's kind of making me just anxiety. But he knows that stuff, right? So, that helps. So I think, and then things like this. So getting involved. If you see a forum or a panel like this pop up, get involved. The people on the panel are going to share knowledge and resources. Same for community. To Shonda's point about diversity. I mean, right now we know what kind of climate that we're in. Get involved in a community group. With folks that may not be like-minded like you are. Learn something different. And there are a lot of opportunities, especially in the wake of COVID, when our entire lives are virtual. So it's easier. You don't have to drive somewhere. You can hop on, a quick panel or a group or learn something to expose yourself. So I agree on that. In terms of the goal setting, so I don't do a vision board, but what I do is at the beginning, I set affirmations at the beginning of every year, and I literally set myself a calendar reminder every single evening to go over my affirmations, whatever they are, because if I don't set this calendar reminder, it's not going to happen. I can't remember what I did 5 minutes ago. So I set that, I go over it. I also do a touch point, like Shonda said, and it's so funny that you say that. I didn't switch providers, but I have slashed so many subscriptions where money was slipping through the cracks, and I didn't realize it until recently. If you're going through a bank statement, you're like, what am I doing? I didn't even know I was paying for this. And this is silly. Why am I paying so much money? Slash and burn, because I can be redirecting that somewhere else. So I don't have necessarily books or podcasts, but certain things that you can do to inform yourself, be a part of your community, and then help with your goal setting. That's what I got.
No, thank you. And I guess I'll add one to it. Rewatch this conversation with the three of you. The amazing knowledge that we all just got the opportunity to share with you. So I want to thank you, Jehan, Jeff, Shonda, for your time. It was very powerful to hear from you guys, accomplished professionals who know what they're talking about and gave some really great advice to those of us who are listening in tonight. So thank you again for your time.
I got one question.
Yep, go ahead.
How is it possible that Shonda has a 25-year-old? Everyone's been pretty honest today, but that I cannot buy.
Jeff, I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to send her a message separately, like, did you say 25?
Adopted at the age of 1?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Everyone's pretty honest, but I
appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm gonna leave that one alone, Jeff. So, but again, thank you to everyone for spending time with us this afternoon. Thank you for your comments, for your likes, for your questions as well. And I do want to say, please make sure you join us tomorrow. We have the conversation around jobs and workforce development with Larry Brinker, president of Brinker Construction, Christina Ware of Aerotech, and Andrew Lamar of Donor. It's going to be a great cap to the 3 days, and then again a reminder for Thursday as well with our keynote speaker. So again, to the panel, Jehan, Shonda, Jeff, thank you for taking time to speak with us here today, and thank you to Junior Achievement and the Rising Achiever Advisory Board for putting this on.